Welcome to Sunday Night Small Talk. I'm Hegemony, and today we're going to be discussing two somewhat major topics. Those two topics being unoriginal copy-paste mods and the implication of longer wait times for upper quality mods. When it comes down to horror mods specifically, I see a lot of copy and paste. The biggest example being the Suicide Mouse, and how there was like 40 different mods for Suicide Mouse. Personally, I don't really mind if a mod is using another idea that's already been done, but it needs to have some sort of unique curve to it, whereas with those Suicide Mouse mods, I didn't really see much of a unique curve, to be honest. It was more just the same concept, the same idea, except some of them probably had worse music or worse art, and it was just the same thing over and over again, and it was not a very good time.
There's like two things about it, is that first of all, there's at least a good side to it, and it's not even the fact that like it's any of the mods, it's for the fact that this trend didn't last long. So many of them over such a short time, then everyone kind of just forgot about them after they went, if you kind of notice, which is kind of a good thing, because like, yeah, you kind of notice that like they're all carbon copies of each other. No one gives a shit about like from the third one onwards, because it's just so boring. It's like, oh, funny mouse walking down the thing, he dies, he becomes big monster, or the other one where he doesn't. And you know, to make another example, the Hank mods, like there's quite a few of them, but they are at least discernible from each other. Like for example, Hank Accelerant compared to like Hank High Effort, there's a clear difference between the two. For example, like for the Accelerant one, that Hank is like more, it's more like arcade type thing where it's like more testing your skill, and it's part of like a bigger thing, which is like, you know, the Friday Night Funkin' versus stuff with the multiplayer things that they're working on. But like the Hank High Effort mod is just the Hank High Effort mod, and it's a bit different because it's less of like an arcade type test your skill thing. It's focusing more on the actual madness combat element and giving it more of its own identity. But like those two are discernible. You can like see the clear difference from one to each other. But yeah, you get the carbon copies of the Suicide Mouse ones, which are just like, oh, this Suicide Mouse has color. This Suicide Mouse turns into your dad.
Yeah, that's exactly why I wouldn't count those Hank mods or whatever as copy-paste mods. I count a copy-paste mod as a mod that just takes another mod's material or takes the concept and just adds almost nothing new to it comparatively to those Hank mods, which I wouldn't call copy and paste because they have a source material which they draw from, and most of them actually make something unique out of said source material. So it's less of a copy-paste and more of just a people's own spin on things. A lot of people who actually made these smaller copy and paste mods were just trying to make something out of, you know, their favorite concept or their favorite idea, or, you know, maybe they're just a huge super fan of Suicide Mouse or whatever. But that's kind of the problem when it comes to the fact that a million people have already done it. Your idea's kind of been taken. You have to do something else. If you can't really put your own unique spin on the whole Suicide Mouse thing or whatever mod that's being copy and pasted, I don't think it's alright to then just go and make another one, because it's only really fueling the fire. It seems to have stopped now, but it was kind of a problem for a little while.
Yeah, just one small other thing. I know it's not Friday Night Funkin', but Five Nights at Treasure Island, like when the 2020 version was released, it actually had notions to Suicide Mouse put into the game. And I was thinking the sort of way that they took that and sort of made Suicide Mouse part of this bigger story with the whole like Treasure Island creepypasta and stuff would kind of be cool if they did it in a Friday Night Funkin' format, where they took the idea of Suicide Mouse and maybe made their own story, or maybe took a huge twist on it, or like spun the story completely to the point where maybe some sort of secret was found, or there was something that no one ever knew. And you know, it might not always have to be the biggest thing, but a little change like that would at least make it more recognizable and stand out on its own, rather than, yeah, as you're saying, being just these carbon copies of each other with one small difference that doesn't really change anything.
Basically make an AU.
So what's your opinion on the carbon copy mods that we see these days?
Honestly, I think it's like a big killer of creativity in terms of like Friday Night Funkin' mods. I think that the biggest killer of creativity is just like, you know, copying what other people are doing, but just do like very subtle changes, like, oh, just making the art quote unquote better. It kind of reminds me of like how cartoons will get reboots after they finished, and they're given like this completely different art style, and a lot of the original charm of the cartoon is sort of replaced with like not that good stuff. And I guess that's what sort of like reminds me of like, you know, the carbon copies. Like they're just like taking the charm of the original mod and just trying to like make it quote unquote better when it really isn't.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like the Powerpuff Girls reboot, where it was like all good and badass and shit like that at the beginning, and then it just became like really boring and dreary.
It was never good from the beginning. It was bad from the start. I used to like it because I was a kid who just looked at something and was like, oh yeah, that was enjoyable, but it was flawed from the start. Something like Teen Titans Go was, you know, it butchered the original, but it was like it still has its up qualities. The Powerpuff Girls reboot had no up qualities.
The reboot was complete dog shit, yeah.
I guess just don't be afraid to like go with some new original ideas, and don't try to profit off of other people's original mods. Just don't be afraid to take whatever stupid ideas in your head, because hey, we made a whole bunch of mods out of really old, outdated memes and other really strange and obscure characters. So if you really put your mind to it, you can create any sort of mod that you can, and maybe it'll be a big hit. So don't be afraid to try new things, and don't just do what everybody else is doing.
So when I take a look at like the wait time between mods, I kind of divide it up into two notions that I think about. It's either if the mod is worth the wait of like wanting to wait for this mod, or if it isn't. A mod that I am currently waiting for like development is the Walton Files mod, because it's really well made and I'm really invested to seeing how these people integrate the Walton Files story with Friday Night Funkin'. Is really interesting to look at. It's worth the wait because the songs are already good. What they've released is above the bar amazing, and it's something that you want to like be on the lookout for. That means you would want to wait for it. So let's say like it might take them a month to do like 1 week with full voice acting and stuff like that. It's worth to sit there and wait for release, and it's satisfying to actually play after the update has come out. A wait that I wouldn't want to wait for something for is kind of like the Mag Agent mod, because seeing that, there's not really that much that you want to wait for, and I've checked up on it recently, and there really isn't that much that you would want to wait around for. They're going to introduce some new songs and some new mechanics and stuff like that, and they're going to like change up the art style and everything. Like for example, they're going to make the Mag Agent's microphone like a ripped head, and I think that's really cool and everything, but like it doesn't seem like there's enough there to be waiting this long. As you said, Hegemony, it was released in the first Funkin' Forwards, but that was like the end of last year. Not even like the end of last year, just late last year, and now it's already January. You do not have to wait this long for something that you don't really like. You don't need to do that much for it to be this long. Even stuff like Smoke 'em Out Struggle, stuff is only being introduced now, but at least with the Smoke 'em Out Struggle one, you can kind of understand why there's a wait now, because information on it has been given out. So you're like, oh, that's why there's a wait. Okay, I forgive them. But there's some things where they don't say anything and just release the mod 4 months later, and you've completely forgotten about the mod, and you're just moving on to other ones, and you're like, oh yeah, I was waiting for this, wasn't I? Sometimes you just don't care, or sometimes it's just like doesn't take your interest anymore, and it's like, well, what was the point of waiting for this long for something that doesn't require it? Some people make some things that are like massive, like these massive, really well made, really tightly made mods, and they update it like that. Sometimes they make bigger mods than some of the biggest mods we've seen, and they are pushed out really, really quickly and made really, really well. So if things like that exist, I don't understand the excuse for people to take such a long time for things that don't require the amount of time that they're doing, unless there's something like background issues, drama, or someone has had their computer set on fire. I don't really understand why people have to take this long between mods. That's how I really see the sort of waiting between mods. Kind of like split the two in my mind and see, oh, is this worth it? No, okay, forget about it then. And then it kind of makes you disappointed, but you kind of have to move.
I think what a big problem with the wait between mods is not necessarily everything you just stated, but is kind of the gap between waiting for all these good big mods, because in between all these crazy stellar mods that we get all the time, we have just these small little mods that aren't that technically impressive or advanced. And while it is cool to see just, short and simple 1 week mods or whatever, when the standard has gotten so high to the point that we're all expecting every mod to top the tricky V3 or V2, it becomes kind of a problem when there's just mods that are average in between the wait between all the mods that we've been waiting months for, that just aren't releasing, because mod making takes time, I get that, but when it comes to the point where I'm waiting ages just for one mod to drop and all I've got in between is just simple mods that don't really blow me away because it's nothing I haven't seen before and the music or the art just isn't anything crazy either, I'm just sitting here waiting for stuff to drop while I do absolutely nothing.
I do not have much of a say on this because I don't keep in track of like the developments of a lot of mods. I just sort of look at what mods interest me when they first come out. I don't really follow a lot of the development, but I can understand where you guys are coming from. I do think that, like, of course, artists, they deserve to, like, take their time with their projects and, like, take plenty of mental health breaks, work through other issues. But also, I feel like a good way to avoid disappointing fans and making them wait long enough is to, like, show a lot of progress shots and, like, maybe update them on, like, some problems that are going on that are slowing down development.
Yeah, Ninja Muffin, come on.
Where the f*** is Wiki? Thanks for tuning in to the second episode of Sunday Night Small Talk. If you want to see any of these turn into full videos, then leave a comment. Over the next few weeks, we should have some solo mod reviews coming out, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget to Hulk smash the like button, ground pound the subscribe button, obliterate the share button, and comment too. Goodbye.
Subscribe or else.